Hey there, everybody. Pastor Rick, Broadman Baptist Church, and this is the Broadman Word for April 28th, 2021. What an amazing day to be alive, to be one of God's children, and to be just excited about what the world has for you to go out and conquer today. You know, as a Christian, we need to have wisdom, and we need to be able to move forward the purposes of the kingdom always in the front of our mind, moving forward. So today I want to talk to you about wisdom and folly out of Ecclesiastes 10, 2 and 3. The scripture says, "The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense." So pretty clear words there in Ecclesiastes about being wise or being foolish. You know, a good analogy story that I've heard a number of times is about a young man who unfortunately got himself to the point where he felt like it was appropriate to rob a convenience store. And his plan was to get the cashier to open the drawer and then take all the cash with him. So he goes in and he lays a $20 bill on the counter asking for change. And when the cashier opens the drawer to get the change for him, he pulls out a gun, demands all the cash in the drawer, which he gets from the cashier. Nervous and not experienced at this, he grabs that cash, runs out, and leaves the $20 bill on the counter. Unfortunately for him, a police officer is nearby in the parking lot, sees him running out with a gun and stuffing cash in his pocket, and immediately arrests him. Well, they take him back inside and have him pull the cash out of his pocket, and turns out he netted a total of $15 from the till and had left a $20 bill on the counter. So it actually cost him $5 to create that robbery and what I'm sure is the ensuing jail time. So, not that we're all, or any of us, going to go rob a store, but we do act foolishly sometimes. And we don't always do the right thing. The key is to know how we can learn from the situation and how we can view how sometimes foolish our behavior is, even when it can be very well intentioned. Without any sort of oversight or correction, our poor choices can unfortunately develop into habits, or we can unfortunately alienate folks without knowing that we are, and that will negatively impact our character. It will hinder our witness, and like I was saying earlier, that excitement about going out into the kingdom and moving the kingdom forward, accomplishing the good purposes of God, can be retarded, can be held back. And the reason is foolishness instead of wisdom. It is hard to admit our foolishness sometimes. It requires some self-introspect, some self-evaluation. Requires extra work. It's easy to simply go along and not really think about what we say or do a whole lot. But we all have some sort of flaw in our character that requires addressing. And if we don't, we may not reach the full potential that we have as a Christian. And after all, that is the purpose for being here, to honor and glorify God and serve the kingdom. So we need to be able to admit that we've made a mistake, or that we've perhaps made a rash decision, didn't take the time to fully understand the people, person, or situation. Like we learned about in Joshua chapter 22, the whole nation of Israel was ready to go to war against people that they had just fought with, all over a misunderstanding over an altar, because they didn't understand the people, didn't understand the situation, didn't take the time to. Fortunately, they eventually did go talk it out, but it was a very serious situation. We can be in that situation very easily today with the amount of information we have, the technology we have, and how fast things can spread and how perceptions can be bent by whatever particular piece of media you're looking at. We have a great danger of misunderstanding and then acting on that misunderstanding and thus being foolish. So thankfully, though, we have a big God, and God can use our foolishness to discipline us and to shape us. It isn't easy or fun. Discipline isn't pleasant, but it does yield some good training for us, and in the end, we produce good fruit because of the discipline that we've gone through. In the long run, we need to accept our Father's discipline for our foolishness and learn from it and slowly chip away at anything that we might have out there as folly. Hebrews 12:11 likes to accept our Father's discipline for our foolish behavior because we should ask Him to make us more like the sons and daughters He intends us to be. So while you're going through your day, first, reflect. Reflect on what has happened and make sure you don't have anything to go back and correct. It's easier to put forethought into it and not have those situations in the first place. But we're not perfect, and things are going to happen, things are going to be done or said, but it doesn't mean that we can't reflect on it later, learn something from it, make it right if we can, and then end up on the side of wisdom and not folly. We should always, before we go out in a day, like the Israelites before crossing the Jordan, consecrate yourself. It's a big fancy word, not a big fancy action. Simply means to make sure what it is you're about to do, the mindset that you're in, the actions you're going to take, the things you're going to say are in fact directed by God, within God's will, and thus sacred, meaning you consecrated yourself, and then your actions will meet with God's approval. They will be according to His will, and you will be wise. So let's not dismiss folly, because we all have some. We all commit some. But let's keep it where it can be productive and useful and not a permanent flaw in our character or a hindrance to our witness and our ministries. Listen, I love you. You take care. I'll see you next time.